initiatives. So the leadership that we are aspiring now for is a leadership that, as our colleague Shadi here was saying, does actually look with concern and skepticism to Mubarak's generals who are running the show now, because these generals are the ones who provided the backbone for this dictatorship over the past 30 years. And it's the military junta which receives $1.3 billion from the US every year, so we can expect closer relationship between the two. So the leadership that we have must be a leadership from below. I'm not really obsessed with the names that the media keeps on circulating, like al-Baradei and others, because I believe that we're 82 million Egyptians or more, and you can find actually alternative leaderships if you push for these struggles from below.
And what do you make of the pace of reform, as we were talking about earlier? You think it's too much too quickly, or do we need to take our time here? For me, it's not really a question of timing. It can take as long as it wants or as short as it should be, but it's who's in charge while this process is happening. When you get the military generals running this process and administrating it, then you have to be very skeptical and vigilant, because the military, at the end of the day, can engineer a civilian government. I mean, I do believe that they don't want to stay in power forever, and that they would prefer handing over the political power to a civilian government. But do we want to end up with a system like Turkey, where you have a civilian government, for example, but the military institution is so powerful that it's very difficult to cross the line with? It's about who's running the show. And as long as Mubarak's generals are over there and they are the ones administering this transformation, then I would be very skeptical. And for me, it's not really about, like, is it going to take 1 week or 6 months? It's about who's administering it. Shadi Hamid, if I could turn back to you on this. Whatever government emerges out of this transitionary period, do you feel it's one that the Egyptian military, as powerful as it is in the country and as powerful as it has been for so long now, has to be one that they will ultimately be happy with?
Well, I don't think it's so much an issue of what they're happy with. I mean, there will be elections, and the cabinet should be formed according to the results of those elections. We're assuming that the military is not going to intervene in the electoral process and try to rig the ballot. So it's really up to the Egyptian people who they want to vote for. Now, if the results aren't to the military's liking, but let's keep in mind that everyone who's participating now has the military's approval. So the one big fear would be the Muslim Brotherhood, but the military has already shown that it's okay with the Brotherhood playing a larger role in politics. There has been a dialogue between the two sides. So I don't really see an emerging party or group that would really threaten the military or get them nervous in that respect.
Well, you mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood there. They're a very well organized group, and they've done well in a previous election. Does it concern you perhaps that there are other opposition groups that are still trying to get themselves established, that need more time to do that? Otherwise, a group like the Muslim Brotherhood, as some people fear, will have more power in all of this?
Yeah, that's a real concern here. Will other political parties have a chance to develop and form and build their constituencies? Right now, we just really have the Brotherhood, the old ruling party, and a few smaller liberal parties that don't really have much sway with the Egyptian people, like Al-Wafd or Al-Ghad. So that is a big concern, and I don't really know if it's a question of 6 months and 12 months. What I think has to happen is that these parties have to be encouraged to form. They have to have full freedom to reach out to Egyptians, to have access to the media, and that has to start right away. And it's not starting yet, and that's where I think there's some concern about how much the military is willing to facilitate a political environment that's conducive to the building of political parties.
All right, we are out of time, gentlemen. We want to thank both of you for taking part in the discussion. Shadi Hamid and Hussam El Hamalawi, many thanks for your time. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, you can take part in the debate yourself. We welcome your comments and suggestions. You can email them to us anytime at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.
Leaders are remembered, be they loved or feared. Alone they are inscribed on the pages of history. But what of the men and women whose hands build their monuments and whose blood stains their battlefields? The people who, against all odds, wield the power to reshape history. People in power at this time on AlJazeera.
The relocation of the Ahmadiyya has magnified the issue of religious intolerance in Indonesia. Is this inevitable in a multicultural society? And is the government turning a blind eye?
101 East at this time on AlJazeera.
It is in the details. A look. A connection. The moments that reveal the truth. Award-winning documentaries from critically acclaimed filmmakers. Witness documentaries to open your eyes. At this time on AlJazeera.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on AlJazeera.
Fighters in Libya's oil-rich region call for backup after a fresh wave of airstrikes. This is AlJazeera live from Doha. I'm Imran Garda. Also ahead, thousands of migrant workers are heading home after weeks of living in limbo in Libya. Plus, escalating violence in Côte d'Ivoire puts it back in the UN sights. And Egypt moves a step closer to forming a government with the appointment of a new prime minister. It's just gone past 3 a.m. in Libya. Forces loyal to the country's embattled leader are trying to take control of the east, but they're not having much success. Let's take a look at where things stand. Gaddafi's fighters launched fresh airstrikes on the strategic oil town of Breka, which is now held by his opponents. Some reports say they may have been targeting the airport, where the two sides have been battling for control. This follows similar strikes on Wednesday. And US President Barack Obama has used his strongest language yet to denounce Gaddafi. He says the colonel has lost all legitimacy and must give up power